Welcome back, everyone. I'm just checking because I just recorded for 40 minutes. And when I went to end it, it said there wasn't any live stream. So now I'm just looking to see what happened. Well, we'll go until I see something different. So today we're diving into something every aesthetic nurse practitioner needs to talk about, and that's what social media is telling you about ethics and aesthetics. This isn't just about being a good clinician, it's about building a business that won't burn you out, bankrupt your piece, or put your license on the line. This will be more of a teaching style today. I'm going to review my four-step framework to start building an ethical foundation for your practice, whether that's your nursing practice or your business. We'll talk about the top ethical challenges in aesthetic nursing today, from social media fueled pressure to questionable billing practices, how to create an ethical framework for your aesthetic business that aligns with your values and keeps you legally protected, policy must haves that you safeguard your patients and your reputation, how to monitor, audit, and get feedback on your ethical practices without micromanaging or burnout, and where to get professional support when you feel unsure, overwhelmed, or stuck in a gray area. By the end of this episode, you'll have real steps you can implement this week to lead confidently and ethically in your business without second guessing yourself. I'm just looking to see if there's anything happening that would let me know that there's something wrong. Well, we'll try it again. Okay, so I have my prayer that we'll get into. God, thank you for creating the beauty around me. All of it is miraculous display of your creativity and kindness. You didn't need to create any of this, but you chose to. Help me to appreciate what you've made. Keep showing me how you're at work in the world. In Jesus' name, amen. I'm Dr. Kimberly Madison, a doctorally prepared nurse practitioner and the founder of Mahogany Dermatology Nursing Education and Research, where we're committed to increasing access to dermatology nursing education and research with an emphasis on skin of color, business acumen, and digital fluency. I have come on the internet for over a year now, sharing my journey, answering your questions, and now your journeys, sharing them with me, your concerns, your requests, has become the foundation for my business. And so I just started to believe that if I build the table and you all bring your chairs, we can really do this thing some justice. And so here we are. Yeah, I drop new videos every Sunday at 12:15 a.m. Central. So my night shift friends can be the first to get something and not the last. And we have our topics like we have here today about ethics and aesthetics. And then at the end, I usually have a continuing conversation with you about what's going on with me and my health, and with my business. And I believe if you're in the business of taking care of other people and their health, you have to be in the business of taking care for yourself. And so I try to demonstrate that by keeping you abreast of things that I'm comfortable talking about online. And the prayer is part of that. That's part of my health, my spiritual health. And so that's why I did that. So because I've already done this and I've been doing batch content all day, let's just jump into it. So last week I talked to you about whether you should go to NP school, and I had a hard stop. So I wasn't able to finish all my thoughts last week. And that episode is, the question itself is quite popular, particularly in aesthetic, well, in general, but especially in aesthetics, because you can practice as a nurse, which we talked about. But it was inspired by a mom who came to Facebook asking this question on behalf of her daughter who's in high school and interested in aesthetics. And the mom wanted to know in particular, what she should do. And so I told you that I wrote a white paper. By the time you're watching this, I hope it's out. And I cover that question in there. And so basically, I talk about how to get into aesthetics from high school all the way through, whether you're in high school, nursing school, experienced clinician, or an NP transitioning from another specialty. So it's covered in there. A lot of things are covered in that white paper. It's on the state of nursing education with the implications for aesthetics. So yeah, if it's available, the link is in the description box. And when it is available, of course, I'll talk about it all over social media, including the blog and my email list. If you want to join the email list, just connect with me on the blog and we'll add you there. I know not everybody stays on social media as much as I do. And so we would love to keep you in the loop that way. So should you go to NP school, we're going to look at this two ways. One is an entrepreneur lens. You're solely focused on having a business. This just happens to be a business that you chose. You don't see yourself working in the business long term, and you're quite comfortable in your ability to pick good talent, right? Whether you do that or you pick someone who's good at it. You have things in place to help you identify people, and when you realize maybe they're not a good fit, you have ways to let them move on their merry way. We talked about that 2 weeks ago, right? how to continue to monetize your intellectual property, even if you lose staff, right? That episode was called, oh, I don't remember what I called it. Let me tell you. It's in our aesthetic playlist. I created a new aesthetic playlist for MPs and entrepreneurs, so you can find it there. But yeah, so if that's what you want to do, then spending more time filling out applications, getting people to write recommendations for you, going through school, finding preceptors, going through all that, changing your life, getting a job, going through orientation, getting X amount of experience. What is that number? How many years of experience do you need? Do you feel comfortable? Do you feel competent? Do any of us get to like? Aren't we all still striving to be more comfortable, more confident in some way? Then you might not need to go to NP school, right? But if the reason you're in nursing or in NP or in healthcare or in nursing is because of your interest in helping people, right? That's what most people, when I ask people, and I ask this question a lot on the blog and in real life, why did people go into nursing? Because they want to help people. Now, there are a million ways you can help people. And even that entrepreneur is helping someone. There's always this sense that if you own a business, you don't want to help people, you just want to make money. I want to help people and make money. Can those two things exist? Absolutely. So if you want to help people, if you understand what nursing is all about, which is helping people in their most vulnerable states, offering comprehensive education, holistic care, regardless of the setting, the patient, the circumstances, our own health sometimes, right? That's what we're there for. That's that patient-centered care we pride ourselves on. Of course, I talk to you all the time about provider-centered practice and how the two need to mutually exist so that you don't lose yourself in all of this, right? But at the end of the day, it's all about the patient. And so when those of us go to NP school, it's because we want to have options, right? Because we're talking about aesthetics, but we could easily talk to you about the acne on your face too. We want to be able to do that. If you come in and talk about chest pain, I want to be able to give you information and guide you in the right direction. It's within my scope, and when I further my education, I'm able to do those things. And what I know about nursing is if you talk to a nurse who's been practicing for 5 years, they've done 5 different things because we move around a lot, right? I don't know if it's part of our personality or our lifestyle, where we are going to be most attracted to the thing that supports us. If it supports us going back to school, starting a family, taking care of our parents, starting our business, we're going to go there. If it's something we love, oh, that is golden. But if it's not, and it just helps us get to where we are, to where we want to be, we'll do that too. And when we go to NP school and we have those extra skill sets and knowledge, then we have those options, right? And so again, it's going to come down to what you want and what you're in a position to do. Because it's easy for people to say, go back to school, spend the money, spend the time, be away from your family, if money's a real issue, right? If someone has a terminal disease and every day really counts, that's not a choice for you. It's not an option, and that's okay, right? We all have to make our own decisions. So let's get into ethics. So because this is a really important topic, and there's actually already information written provided by the American Nurses Association, I have notes for you. So let's get into what aesthetics is. So ethical values are the backbone of healthcare. The word ethics comes from the Greek word ethos, meaning character. And it's really about the kind of person we choose to be and the actions we take. In healthcare, ethics aren't just abstract ideas, they're universal rules that guide us to what's right, helping us navigate through tough decisions with integrity. And sometimes when it's beyond our own decision making, we have teams of people, because some of the decisions we make in healthcare really, there is no right or wrong. There is no right answer. For nurses, ethics are especially important. Every day we face situations where we must balance what's right for our patients with laws, professional standards, and sometimes even our own values, right? That's where we have that whole conversation about abortion, right? Even right now, there's a case where there's a lady, I think she was considered brain dead, but she's pregnant, and they're keeping her alive I don't know the whole story, but what I did see, they're saying that the fetus is non-viable. And so people are wondering, I think because the state, I think it's Georgia, because they have an abortion law, I think. So I guess they're saying that's why they're keeping her alive. But those kind of cases, right, is a really good example of what this is all about. So that's why the American Nurses Association created the Code of Ethics. It's usually part of your lecture in the first semester of nursing, a clear guide that outlines what nursing truly stands for. It's a living document because we're updating it all the time to reflect what's happening in life with technology, society, the expanding roles of nurses in clinical care, research, education, leadership. You can be part of writing these documents, updating them, code of ethics. You can be part of the American Nurses Association. You can be part of your board of nursing. These are things you can be a part of. Lend your value, your expertise, your perspective, grow as you do. This code breaks down nursing ethics into 9 provisions, which we're going to get into. At the core, it reminds us to treat every person with compassion and respect, honoring their dignity. Our primary commitment is always the patient, listening to their needs, protecting their rights, and advocating for their health and safety. But it also acknowledges that we must care for ourselves, stay accountable for our decisions, and work together to maintain ethical environments in our workplace. We have to do that for each other. Beyond just individual, and if we leave because we don't see something that's satisfactory, it doesn't mean we have to abandon it. What if we just, I'm an NP, I start my own place, and I hire other NPs and nurses, and I create those standards. I don't have to abandon the industry, right? And you can hire other people who aren't nurses, but I'm just saying, you can have an impact, you can have an influence, right? You don't have to abandon everything. There are solutions and options for you. Beyond just individual practice, nursing ethics encourages us to advance the profession through research, collaboration, and health policy, always striving to reduce disparities and promote social justice. These principles aren't just ideals, they are the foundation for ethical patient care, where autonomy, beneficence, justice, and non-malfeasance guide our actions. These are things that show up on your exam. In practice, respecting a patient's autonomy means honoring their right to make their own decision, even if they refuse treatment. We believe it's beneficial. Beneficence calls us to actively promote good and prevent harm, while justice reminds us to treat everyone fairly despite challenges like unequal access to care. Non-malfeasance, or do no harm, often presents the hardest dilemmas, right? In the case of that mom and baby, whose life matters more, right? And everyone's going to have their own opinion about that. Strong opinions, by the way, especially when patients choose to stop life-saving treatments. Nursing ethics are a constant balancing act between advocating for our patients, respecting their beliefs, and upholding our professional integrity. It's a commitment that begins in nursing school and continues throughout our careers, shaping us into compassionate, accountable, and courageous caregivers. So, in addition to looking up the code of ethics, you can do continuing education credits. So you can go a million places to get CEs. I happen to go to NetCE. When you go there, you'll have to put in your state. It will show you all the mandated courses you need to take. And for Texas, actually, there's an ethics one. So I linked that in the description box for you. You can go over there, check that out. Also over there, I like to do things that relate to nursing, right? Because even if I'm doing aesthetics and I see you have high blood pressure, diabetes, and it's impacting your ability to heal or the reason you're presenting with this situation to begin with, I want to be able to educate you on that, right? We're all about prevention and health promotion, disease prevention. And so when I do my continuing education, even regardless of the specialty I'm practicing at the time, I love to do things that are just very prevalent in our community and that are really important for me to stay up to date on. So things like high blood pressure, diabetes, things that really impact my community. And even there's a Botox one on NetCE. I think it's like either 10 or 15 credits. It was long. I had some really fun ones. Arizona had some fun ones, like botanicals or something like that. So you can go over there and check that out. I link that in the description box. And if you look at read the whole thing, because it's written by a nurse practitioner. These are things you can do. And it has no requirements for how many years you need to be in practice. None of those kind of things. How many degrees have you earned? None of that. It's being willing to serve. Okay. So let's talk about what's at stake. The aesthetic industry is booming, but not all growth is healthy. Between treatment culture, social media pressure, and corporate quotas, we forget that we're clinicians first, right? But not today. I have emphasized that many times. And these ethical lapses can lead to board complaints, loss of licensure, lawsuits, reputation damage, burnout from misalignment, right? I think I talked to you last week about that case here in Texas where the patient died from IV infusion, and it brought up a whole situation. We're looking at who can deliver those kind of treatments and med spas in particular. Did a whole detail on that one for you. And I linked the bill in there, the House bill, AmSpa's commentary, and the link to the live hearing, all in that video from last week, okay? And that's in our new playlist for aesthetic and nurse practitioner, for aesthetics, for nurse practitioners and entrepreneurs. We're putting all these videos in there for your easy access. And this video is a continuation from that, because we started talking about ethics then. And now we'll really get into the details of what you can do about it. So what you can do about it is this 4-step framework. So you can build an ethical foundation, not only for your practice as a nurse, you delivering the care, but as a business owner, how do you put these things in place, right? So the first one that you can do, if you're as a practitioner, is write down your value statements, your non-negotiables, just like we do in dating. What are you never going to compromise on? Put that in your contract, right? Just don't look at compensation and PTO. Those are important things, but they're not the only thing you should care about. You can protect your license in documentation. What do you prioritize? Outcomes, inclusivity, informed choice? Tie your values to real life examples. Things like, say, we will never inject a first-time client at consultation without a 24-hour cooling period. You can put this in your SOPs or your standard operating procedures, which are like a recipe, so that it matters. It's like McDonald's. Whoever makes the hamburger, you're going to get the same outcome. You can do this in your practice. Really important. You can put this on your website, onboarding materials, so your whole staff is up to date, and then put in checkpoints to evaluate your client's understanding. This is the nursing side. We do teach back. I just told you all this information. It was a lot of information. Let's take it one step at a time and repeat back to me what it is you understand, right? This is super important, right? If the patient's going to walk away upset, there's a chance they didn't clear. There's a lot of reasons, but one of those could just be a lack of understanding, right? And this is where I think nurse-led clinics could really play a strong leadership role here by, nurse-led clinics. These exist. You can go Google, you can get PubMed. Lots of research has been done on the benefits of nurse-led clinics and how we can, so that's that part. I haven't looked to see nurse-led clinics and aesthetics, what the latest evidence says there. But I think it's a great idea, and I would love to see some of you do that in your research, either as a student or as a clinician. So how can you develop core clinical and operational policies? Well, make sure you have clear refund, cancellation, and injection refusal policies. Very clear consent forms that emphasize informed risk, especially for skin of color or treatments or patients that if you're new and you're still a little building up your confidence and your skill set, you want to be really clear in your documentation about their risk. Or maybe you're just in a place where maybe there's limited resources, right? So take all that into consideration. Your treatment planning of your SOPs, review them on a regular basis, whatever that is, monthly, quarterly. Set up your team for success. Give them a checklist so they can easily meet these new measurements and metrics. And you don't have to do it all yourself. You can definitely delegate. Use AI, utilize interns. We talked about interns before for entrepreneurs and your students. Just because you're precepting someone, you're doing more than just teaching them this one isolated thing. I think we do students a disservice by not giving them exposure to the whole picture so they can feel right now what it is they're agreeing to. And then maybe the culture shock and that learning curve won't be so steep when they're in actual practice. And this is where you can bring in a healthcare attorney or a practice consultant to review these annually. If you're that NP who's been in aesthetics, you were kind of turned off by what you were seeing, but you really love the specialty. You can go and start your own business as a consultant. This is something you can do, right? And you're going to make sure you're just well informed and you continue to stay up to date on this. You already understand the value of what you're offering and you can talk the same language. So remember, your business doesn't have to just be patient care. I love the B2B model, business to business. It's one of my favorite recommendations. So next, you can train your team on ethics and communication. Whether you hire an injector, front desk staff, or contract an esthetician, you can do some role playing, ethical dilemmas, how to approach these, right? With communication, the steps they should take, how it should be documented, how it should be addressed afterwards when it happens, especially if it shows up publicly on social media. This can be digital. If you're an entrepreneur, you can create a whole ethical package from reviewing the SOPs to chart audits to giving strategic plans for people after they've gone through some of these performance reviews. You can include these in your weekly meetings. You can have everyone pick one case out of the month at the end of the month and go over them either up front, hey, this was a case I had, or people can submit them anonymously and hear everybody's feedback and really learn that way. You know that we did that in the hospital a lot with falls and codes, right? They're debriefing. So we all learn. We want these opportunities to be in a safe place where people feel welcome to learn and not penalized. And using your own cases it's going to hit home more, right? and it's going to be really relevant. So protect yourself legally and professionally. Maintain your malpractice insurance that reflects aesthetic procedures. We know even in our home doesn't always include things like flood and fire protection. So make sure you read your documents carefully before you sign anything. And once everything is signed, keep copies, paper or digital. Schedule these quarterly scope of practice reviews, right? Get feedback. It's golden. And if you're the entrepreneur putting together this package, that's something you can offer. Hey, we can do these for you once a month, once a quarter, and this is what we'll take all that data and we'll do your audits. We'll see how well they're meeting your SOPs that we help you just update, and then we'll give you a score on how well you're meeting those metrics, right? And then we'll give you strategy on how you can get there if you're not meeting them. Remember, ethics is a vibe, isn't a vibe, it's a legal safeguard. So how can you implement these and monitor ethical practices? Well, now that you put these structures in place, you want to bring them to life. Build a system for feedback. It's up to you whether you make it anonymous or not. You have to read the room, right? Make it easy for people and make it electronic. Did they feel pressured? Was consent explained clearly? Was the treatment plan inclusive and respectful? You can create these using Google Forms, Jot form, or maybe there's something integrated in your EMR where you can get feedback from your clientele, from your employees. Schedule monthly audits, right? And use a checklist to review documentation accuracy, if pre and post care has been given, the quality of their consent, patient complaints or cancellations. Again, you can delegate this. You can create an AI, a specialized GPT for that. If you're the entrepreneur, this is something you can sell. And then if you're the CEO or the CFO, COO, the owner, schedule like some kind of 30-minute ritual at the end of each month or quarter where you're going through all of this, right? Consult with an ethics or compliance expert. We've mentioned that. Some of these people might be considered an aesthetic NP legal consultant, healthcare compliance expert, NP or NP board certified ethicist. These are things you could do, right? And if you can't afford this yet, consider joining a mastermind or a membership with compliance training using professional organizations where you can get additional support, particularly if they offer that. And a lot of these organizations will ask, what kind of education do you want? And they really try to meet the requests of their members. And then when you grow your team, make sure you're creating a safe and confidential method to report ethical concerns, right? And don't take them personally. Everyone just wants to do what we talked about at the beginning, provide safe care and maintain our license, right? And do no harm. And then respond with transparency and a clear process, what you're looking for, what you're going to do about it, what everyone can expect from that. You can't protect your license and avoid feedback. Set the tone early and that you welcome it, right? And let's be clear, ethical doesn't mean timid. It means aligned, bold, and trusted. As an NP entrepreneur, your integrity is your brand. When you lead with ethics, patients refer to you because they felt safe. Patients might not know ethics per se, but they know when something's not right. Your team respects your standards when you do this, and you can sleep at night and keep your license that you work so hard for, right? Let's be real. Insurance and attorneys cost more than clarity and communication, right? Because if something happens and you have to get that kind of legal support, you're not going to be sleeping, right? So some things for you to reflect on, right? What ethical policies are written down in your practice? Which ones are only in your head? When was the last time you reviewed your documentation practices? What does an inclusive, ethical, aesthetic practice look like to you? And if it's not documented, this is nursing, it didn't happen. We can make all these assumptions. The puppy might start barking. We can make all these assumptions that everyone should know that, or I was trained to do that, or whatever blanket statement you want to make. If it's not written down, we can't assume, right? And so write out your ethical practice manifesto. If you're an entrepreneur, you can call it that, your package, the ethical practice manifesto. You can put aesthetics on there. Create 3 clear SOPs that reflect it. That include documentation, refunds, client refusals. Audit once a month, audit one aspect of your patient flow. One change at a time and monitor the outcome of that. Otherwise, it gets muddy. If you make a lot of different changes, it's hard to really measure which one's having which impact. Join a professional network where you can get support and outside review and perspective. And let us know in the comments if you've had these issues in practice, how have you addressed it? And what recommendations do you have for people who are new or experienced, but experiencing that right now and really considering leaving either that place of work or aesthetics period, both for the practitioner as well as the business owner. And if you don't want to share it here, you can email me, and I can always continue, talk about your feedback and your experience in an upcoming episode, or write about it on the blog or provide additional insight. I typically don't give away people's information unless they have publicly agreed for me to share it. So it will be safe. And yeah, remember, we have that playlist for you to check out. I want to thank the MP who shared her experience that inspired this episode. All the resources that I mentioned today will be in the description box, like that NetCE one. And I put something else down there for you. Oh, yeah, the whole thing I was talking about when it comes to nursing ethical considerations, I linked to that for you through PubMed. And then, oh my gosh, I'm so glad I looked at this. One of my favorite podcasts right now is called How to Be a Leader by Big Think. And, those are some skill sets you really need to invest in addition to your clinical skills, especially if you're a leader. If you're finding yourself in these kind of ethical positions, you might want to think about getting some leadership training, whether it's in person, through podcast, or you hire someone, right? I think it can really help you when it comes to communication, problem solving. So in addition to understanding the nursing, there's also the leadership part of it, right? So hopefully you find that information helpful, and let us know if you have resources that you think we should check out. I thank you all for watching. I'll see you next time.